Good morning. I'm Jerry Criss. I'm out of Lapine, Oregon, which is over in the central part of the state in the high desert. I'm going to do a extended body green drake, but what I want you to pay attention to is really the process of making the extended body. It's a little different than something you may have seen before. I'm going to use instead of a needle, I'm going to use this little pin or mandrel that I made up. It's a little smaller than most needles I could find. I want you to use the finest needle you can find if that's what you're going to use. Okay. We're going to make it out of deer hair. We're just going to clamp that in the vise, get it tight. You can see this is sprung stainless steel wire, so it really works really, really good for what we're going to do. We're going to take gink, the dry fly dressing, and you can take a wax, a candle wax or something. Don't use your tying wax, because the tying wax is sticky. We want something that'll slide. And we're going to put a coating of this right on the wire. So all I do is really put it on here. I just slide it in the access and just run it down the wire. And we're going to coat that. That'll aid us in sliding the body off of this when we're done. Okay. So now we're going to attach our thread, and the attachments that we're going to make to the mandrel itself are going to be minor. We're only going to make a couple attachments here because we don't want to overdress this wire issue. Okay, so we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 wraps there, and we're going to cut this off. We're not going to pull it. We're going to cut it rather than just snap it, because you'll tighten it up too much. And there's a kind of like medium tension. Okay, now we're going to take a tailing material. Now, this may look a little coarse, and it is. It's a paintbrush. It's a segment of a paintbrush. This comes out of, I think, a 2-inch paintbrush is what I have, and you'll see that I've kind of melted the end. You can get it at most paint stores and that. It's kind of a gold color. You can see the color to it. The tips are good enough for the tails for this that we're going to do. We're going to put in three tails. So we're going to look, and if you kind of spread them out, they're not quite as even as microfibbits. So you kind of have to search a little bit and find 3 that match, or 2 that match. But in a paintbrush, you buy one paintbrush, you'll have enough of these for the rest of your life. And in this color, if you want them darker, you can color them with a marking pen to color them darker if you want. You can make black. You can actually take, if you turn it over sideways like this and you spread this out and you lay a ruler, like right here, you can draw a line down, then you move it over and draw a line. You can actually make black barred tails, just like a lemon duck tail would look like. It makes it, but I like this nice hardy stiff tail for this. It slides off the mandrel nice and all that. So we're going to line up the tips as best we can. And we're going to have them come out just about the end and the length we want. And these we're only going to hold with a couple of wraps. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we have our tail sitting there on top of 3 wraps of thread. We try not to take off too much gunk there. I'm rubbing my finger. Now we're going to take some olive, and this can be any from light to dark olive, depending on the green drakes that you have, or depending on if you're doing a brown drake or you're doing a March brown, and you can just take any colored deer you want to use this, to do this process. Like I said, it's more of the process than the actual fly that I'm tying. So now we're going to clean this deer up. We don't want a whole lot, but we want to get all the garbage out of it. So we're just going to clean it up. And whatever comes out, comes out. Till we get the amount we think we're going to use. Then we're going to stack this so we get the tips even. Now, remember, whenever you stack deer, you want to pull it out of your hair stacker in the direction that you're going to tie it on, so you don't have to try to turn it around and mess up your stack. So I'll pull those out. We'll have a look, make sure the under fur is all out good. Now, we're going to kind of leave it in kind of this fan look and kind of just kind of grab it lightly, and I'm going to put the tips just about where we want the end of the body to be. I'm going to advance my thread maybe down about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to pinch those tips, and now I'm just going to put a soft wrap, and I'm going to pull, and I'm going to make that deer spin around the mandrel. You'll see it start to spin. And I'm not worried about segmentation of this. You know, you'll see some people do these, and you see it spin. You'll see some people do these deer hair things on making a body, and boy, they are trying to get perfect segmentation. I am not worried about that. I find it doesn't make a difference with the way the look of this when it's over. Now you see I'm being very careful coming back to the tips, and there's a reason. Is if you get too many wraps here at the end of the tips, they'll slide off somewhere in the process, and then you start to get a mess. So you got to be really careful of that. But right now I'm in pretty good shape, and you see it doesn't look too bad. Now I'm going to take my wraps of thread forward. I'm going to put my finger back against the mandrel to hold it, because the mandrel will try to bend on me. And you'll see that when I get it back up here, you'll see the hair will spin some more. And we'll flatten it, put my fingers, flatten it out a bit, and we'll crunch that down. We'll push it again, put a wrap, crunch that down. And you can make this as long as you want, because we're going to cut to length. This is going to be, you're just going to make up a piece, and you're going to be able to leave this body as long as you want. Okay, so now we have that right to that point. Now what I'm going to do, let's pull out some thread, and I'm going to do a whip finish right here at the end. I'm going to come right in there, and I'm just going to do a whip finish right there. And if I grab some threads, they grab some hair, and they go backwards, they go backwards. Got to keep the loop open when I drag this up. And if that's not one of the easiest extended bodies you've ever made. Now, we've got some things we want to do. We want to make sure that the tails get split a little bit, so we're going to take our bobbin and we're going to come underneath, and then we're going to pull on them just a little bit. We don't want to pull them too much because we don't want them to slide out, so we're going to spray them out a little bit. So now I'm going to roll my vise around so you can see that I've got, 3 nice tails sitting there. Now, we're going to take this as a Flex Seal. Flex Cement is the same thing. So now we're going to coat this with a Flex Cement. Now this stuff is kind of, it has a sting to it. So, you want to get yourself, and you're just going to put a coating on here. You want to make sure that you touch down where those split tails are. That'll hold those tails split. But you don't want to get too much on the mandrel. And just put a nice coating of this. And one of the neat effects you get with the tips of the deer hair is that if you see a real good photograph of a green drake, especially green drake, is right at the base of the tails, where the body and the tails, where it comes out, there's like little fibers sitting there. Well, you get that effect with the tips of the deer. It's really, really kind of neat looking when you really get the fly done. Now, when I set up to do these, I set up and I just tie these bodies. The basic timing frame of this drying and that is by the time, once I take this out of the mandrel and I set it over here to the side, by the time I tie a fly or I make another body, that one would be just about dry to pull off. Okay, so now that's it. So we got our body made, our extended body, and we just put that over to the side and let it dry. Now, I have one made up. Now, extended body flies. A lot of people try to say if I'm going to make a 10, they're still after trying to use a size 10 hook. You don't have to do that. You've already got the size 10 sitting here in your body, maybe. So you can go to a smaller hook. This one here is a 12. It's a TMC 106 black. Actually, this one's a 14. And so now what we're going to do is now we're going to build a fly. So here's what it looks like. It's all dry. Now one of the neat things about this you'll see is when I pulled it out, you'll see me do that. I put a little crimp in it and I get this little upturn. It's kind of pliable and you can move it around. That's because of the flex cement. Okay. So now we're going to take and we're going to decide how long we want, what size we're going to make. So we'll make a size 10 or something like that. So now we're going to cut the body off. We're going to cut all the excess off. Okay, so now we've cut what we got to length. We trimmed it, and you can see that it doesn't come apart. So now what we're going to do is we're going to drive the hook into the center of it. Like so. And we're going to go in a little ways, and then we're going to make it come out. So basically what we did is we hooked it. And so that's part of our attachment. I've found that what it does, it gives me a better attachment. I don't have to use 6, 8, 10 wraps of thread to get it on the hook. And it stays there really, really well. And once in a while you'll get a little flex cement come out and you'll get a little look to it, but you just clean it up. And you'll see that just sitting on the hook now, that looks pretty good. And you'll see that we're going to have a good sized green drake here. And I got a little hook. It gives me two things. One, it'll float better. And you don't need that big hook to hook fish. We all know that. So now you can build if you want to build a parachute out of this, you can. If you want to do, we're going to do a stand-up wing out of some mallard, some olive mallard. We're going to take some things and they're going to make like a Catskill dry wing up here. So we're going to take some pieces out of one side. We're just evening the tips up. When you pull the barbels out to the side, most of the time the tips will line right up. Try to do that. So here's our second segment. Try to make the segments even. Now I'm going to put the segments back to back so we get kind of a curved look, and then kind of even the tips up as best we can. This is a fishing fly. It's not something I'm going to put in a fly plate, so we can be a little harsher with it. We don't want to be that much harsh. You still want to tie well. You want to have good technique and nice clean. So now we have a nice little bunch. We're going to stand up. So now we'll attach some thread. This is an olive thread. Clip it out of here. Now I will put just a little bit of lacquer right to start to get that body attached. We will get some wraps of thread on it here in a second, as soon as we get this wing standing up. So now we're just going to just like you would with a couple of wraps. Now we're going to drive it up. Put some wraps and drive it up underneath. As few as wraps you can, and pretty soon you're standing up. Now one of the neat things about this is now when I trim this, I'm going to trim this right in front of that body. And I'm going to fill in that gap. So now when I wrap back to there and I hit that extended body, now I have an attachment and the body isn't going to go anywhere. And we'll fill that in a minute. So now we have our wing. If you want, we can come in, split this apart, one wrap, grab the other group, one wrap, and those are kind of soft wraps. I found if you do the little soft before, rather than if you put them too tight, you already pull it in position and then you can't make any adjustments. If you put a little kind of a soft wrap in there, those first X moves, and then grab them, stand them straight up, and then pull straight down, and take 1, 2 wraps there, they stand up pretty nice. We'll stand the back up in the vise a little bit. And you can see that looks pretty good. Green drakes are kind of big and wild anyway. So we got a nice look going. So now we'll take a hackle, and we're not gonna parachute this. We're gonna tie in a hackle straight across, regular style. Get yourself a place that matches somewhere right in there. This is a grizzly, by the way, dyed hackle. This is a grizzly that's a dyed hackle. You can do a straight grizzly if you want. Sometimes just a natural grizzly will work real good for a green drake. We'll just do this one here, all olive. Again, a lot of the tying that you see that I do, I'm just really explaining more of techniques and how to get to a point. And your coloring is whatever you have going in your rivers and streams or lakes. It's, you know, that gold match the hatch. If you want to say that, you can say that, but that's what it comes down to. You just want to match what's in your area. But it's the technique and how to get different materials to do certain things that we're concentrating on. Okay, so now we got our hackle in. So now take a little dubbing. And this is a dry fly dubbing. We're trying to make this thing float. So we're going to take a little olive. And we're going to build a thorax in there. So again, we're just going to dub that on. Again, less is best. So I'm going to drive that in there. We're going to put a little up front. We're going to come back behind. And then that'll be enough. So I got a little much. And so if you got a little, don't try to get it all in there. I mean, you're not going to waste dubbing. I mean, don't worry about it. It's better to do that than to make this big bulky mess there that you don't need. Okay. So now we're going to wind this hackle in. A couple fibers I don't like the look of, so we'll get rid of them now. Take my thread to the front. Now we will 1, 2, stand that up, 1, 2. You can put 3 in back if you want. I'm going to put 3 in front because that's just my choice this time. Stand that up. And I'm going to take my thread. When I hit the stem, I'm going to put tension, and I'm going to pull back on this hackle just a little bit right at me. And I'm going to leave it sit right there, and then come right back up in the groove that I made. Turn this at an angle where you can trim. Make sure you're going to snip this a little bit. And now we're going to take my fingertips. You'll see me do this a lot, and this is something to practice. Put a hackle on the front of your hook. Don't even tie a fly. Put your hackle on the front of a hook, and take your fingertips and find out whether it's this finger or this finger. Sometimes I can tell you I can do better this way, sometimes I can do better this way, and pull back and try to get to where you see nothing but the hook shank or the front without any hackle tips or anything coming forward. Okay, you get that practiced a couple of times, and you'll be surprised where you're able to go with your tying. You'll get so much neater in a lot of the work you do. And I'm going to use a little half-hitch tool here that I built out of an old bobbin. Started cutting thread on me, so it was time to get rid of it. So I'm just going to throw some half hitches up here rather than do a whip, even with my fingers. Tighten it all up. Take the edge of the scissors. You see, I'm not even going to use a closed scissor. I'm just going to have clip that out. Now I will take lacquer. You'll see me lacquer this kind of roughly. And then I will clean out the eye with a tip of a feather or something, and just bingo, it's cleaned. And there we have our green drake with extended body. Okay, nice way to make the body. Now, if I'm correct, we got that one done. So let's bring back the one that we made. So here's the one we made. Oop, sorry about that. And it's dry. I can feel it. It feels dry enough. So we will give it a try. So we're just going to basically put my fingers against it right here at the rear, and we're going to slide and just pull, and try not to pull on the tails. You just push, and off it came, but we lost our tails. And that happens. Okay, sometimes even in a demo, we will lose our tail. So how I would get them back is I would stick a needle through this, and actually we're lucky. I was able to push them through, and so we are going to be able to save this. I was able to push the tails back through there. It's just a matter of, it wasn't probably really dry enough, and that happens. Like I said, this is not a perfect science. So there, it's off the mandrel. So now I take, before it gets real dry, I take my fingers and add that little bend and curve to it, and there we have our extended body.